Hello everyone and welcome. This one here is the big one, literally. For all the hobbyists out there who've asked when FMS is going to release a 1/10 scale rig, well here it is. Under the RocHobby brand, I present to you the Mashigan 1/10 scale ready-to-run RC crawler. I'm sure many of you are already familiar with the highly detailed smaller scale rigs and maybe even some of the larger 1/6 scale models from FMS, but is this first jump into the very popular 1/10 scale scene another hit? Well, today we'll find out. Sit back and enjoy this detailed look at the all-new RocHobby Mashigan. Well, if the box is any indication of what's inside, and well, I guess it should be, but it's certainly looking promising. So many hobbyists have wanted to see FMS come out with a 1/10 scale rig with all of the detail and realism that we've come to expect from their products, and it sure looks like they're ready to deliver. As with I think pretty much every model from their RocHobby brand, this one is unlicensed, but there's no mistaking what this body is, a Jeep Wrangler YJ. I've always loved the early Wranglers, as they were a common sight growing up and even to a certain degree still today, and I've always thought they were kind of a cool update on the original CJ design. Some of the features of this model include opening doors, hood, and tailgate, fold-down windshield, removable hardtop, fully detailed interior, functioning headlights. It sure sounds promising. And hey, if you're a nerd like me, you'll appreciate the name. Chuck Mashigan was credited with designing the YJ, along with involvement in many other cool vehicles. So hey, if you can't name it a Jeep, how about name it after the designer? But let's dig in a little further. I do always like to look at the included manual, which not only contains some nice info for beginners, but also includes detailed exploded diagrams of the body, chassis, suspension, and drivetrain. If you like to travel a lot with your RCs or need a safe way to store them, the practicality of the reusable traveling cases these vehicles are shipped in is great. And there it is, our first look at the Mashigan. Everything is well packed, so well in fact that it took me a few minutes to get the thing out as I needed to remove a few foam pieces, but it has arrived in pristine condition. First impressions are great, lots of detail, and I love this metallic paint color. I also noticed how kind of loose and bouncy the suspension feels compared to some other 10 scale ready-to-run trucks, which tend to be a little stiffer. Personally, I really liked this softer suspension, as I think it contributes to some slightly more lifelike performance when out on the trails. This truck comes fully assembled and ready to run, though you will need to supply your own batteries, both for the transmitter and the truck. The front seats and spare tire do need to be installed, as you can see. This was very simple to do, except for the inner screws that hold the seats in. Unless I'm missing something here, it seems that the suspension links are in the way, so what I did was remove the 8 screws holding the body on the chassis, so I could move the chassis just enough to gain better access to those 2 inner screw holes, and after doing that, it was no problem getting the seats secured. And while on the subject of seats, I like that they are soft and somewhat flexible rather than being made of rigid plastic. They're just like the seats on that Suzuki Jimny I reviewed prior. Just another of many nice little details this truck has. Now I thought while I had the truck turned over, we could have a quick look at the chassis. It's a pretty typical and straightforward setup, 4-link suspension front and rear, 1/9 wheels, plenty of plastic as expected, but everything feels pretty solid and nicely put together. Really what you would expect from a truck in this price range. In my opinion, some of the highlights would be the chassis-mounted steering servo, front-mounted motor, and the relatively small-sized differential housings. These have all become pretty common now on many 10-scale chassis, but it's still nice to see them here. I can't really say too much with regards to the off-roading performance, as I'm more interested in the modeling and scale realism aspects of the hobby, but after driving this truck, it certainly feels plenty capable for how detailed it is, and I'm sure you could really take this up a notch with a few mods if you really wanted better performance. For what will probably be the majority of buyers though, if you just want a nice balance of scale realism and performance, this truck should deliver that right out of the box. One modification though that some die-hard scale enthusiasts might be interested in is an optional leaf spring suspension that will be sold separately. I don't know any details about this at the time of filming, but that sure sounds like a cool mod for that extra bit of realism. Having a look under the hood reveals each of the electronics, very nicely laid out and with plenty of room for the battery. Speaking of battery, make sure it has either a XT60 plug or you have a suitable adapter. This final bag here contains the spare tire and the gauge decals. I figured now would be as good of a time as any to remove that hardtop so I can put those decals on. It's a little tedious to do, and you have to be careful not to strip the heads on the front 2 screws, but with all 4 of the screws removed, the top comes right off. Also, here's a quick demonstration of the fold-down windshield. I put those decals on, as well as the spare tire, and now we can see this Jeep in all its glory. What a great looking model. Honestly, I think it really speaks for itself. Great detail, opening doors, and a full interior. Of course, a little painted detail could take this truck even further, but just out of the box, it looks great. If you wanted to do a full custom build, I'm sure you could take this body apart fairly easily. However, it would be nice if FMS offers some sort of unpainted, unassembled version of this body. I have no idea if they have any plans to do that, but if they did, I think it'd be a nice option for the custom builders. This is very common, but I still think it's worth pointing out, and that's while the wheelbase and width of this vehicle is pretty standard for a 10th scale crawler, this Jeep body is technically a little larger than 1/10 scale, maybe more like in the ballpark of 1/8 or 1/9 scale. This is very common, especially in the world of 10th scale RC. You can't really expect every body to be exactly 1/10 the size of the real thing, and it's really not an issue unless you want to display this truck alongside other crawlers, and in that case it may look a little off. We'll go ahead and have a quick look at the included transmitter. This is the same exact transmitter FMS includes with some other vehicles, such as that Jimny I showcased a while back. It requires 4 AA batteries to power on, and although basic, it's certainly suitable. To power the truck, I'll be using the Shorty Pack 5000 mAh 2S LiPo, along with an adapter cable so it can be connected to that XT60 connector under the hood. Before powering on the truck, be sure the jumpers on the ESC are in the correct position, depending on which kind of battery you're using. Much like the Suzuki Jimny I drove prior, this Mashigan has a very strong drag brake with no apparent way to adjust it. While the electronics included may be basic, they'll certainly get the job done. Getting out on the trails was a lot of fun with this rig. It looks great and performs quite well. You can do some pretty decent slow crawling, and there's plenty of wheel speed if needed. While this is more of a trail truck than a purpose-built crawler, it was able to tackle some fairly tricky obstacles, and those 1/9 wheels are a nice balance of scale looks, while still being able to roll over most of what lies in its way. I really like seeing those functioning headlights, which is something we've really come to expect from FMS. I couldn't find a way to turn them off from the transmitter like on prior vehicles, but of course you could always install a more comprehensive light kit, or if you don't want the headlights on at all, simply unplug them. As you may have noticed during this drive, the steering wheel does turn along with the front wheels, a cool little detail. When I first drove this truck, I noticed that the turning radius was a little lacking. However, making a minor adjustment to the steering dual rate on the transmitter seemed to help. I'm assuming that increasing the steering angle in that way isn't causing any issues with the front axles, as nothing seems to be binding or rubbing in any way, so this may be something to check with your Mashigan to make sure you're getting every degree out of your steering. Of course, be careful when doing this, as you want to make sure you don't run into any issues with binding. All in all, a great rig to play around with on the trails. FMS diving into the world of 10-scale crawlers has been highly anticipated, and after seeing and driving this Mashigan, I don't think anyone is going to be disappointed. Just like with their smaller scale models, this Mashigan combines a highly detailed and shelf-worthy hardbody with solid performance at what I anticipate will be a very reasonable price. Many modelers and hobbyists will want to take this Mashigan even further by adding more details, custom parts, and higher-end electronics, but at the same time, what's here already will be perfectly suitable for many casual or even beginner hobbyists. I anticipate this 10-scale Mashigan will be a hit, and I hope FMS will use this platform and same attention to detail for future vehicles. For now though, I'm looking forward to getting this rig back on the trails, especially when the weather gets a bit warmer. I've got some ideas for a few simple mods that I want to try out, so be on the lookout for that, but otherwise I'm going to wrap up this video right here. Thank you all very much for watching, and thanks to FMS for sending this Mashigan for review. I'll be sure to leave a link in the description below if you'd like to learn more about this vehicle and order one for yourself. Thanks again everyone, and I'll see you all next time.